The cold air in the Baytech boardroom usually felt like a status symbol, but today it just felt like a grave. I stood at the head of the table, my eyes tracking the second hand of my Rolex. 30 seconds. That was the difference between a career and a catastrophe in my world. I didn't look up when the junior analyst stumbled in, his face pale. I didn't need to. "You're late," I said, my voice as flat as a heart monitor on a dead man. "Don't bother sitting. Your access card has already been deactivated." The silence that followed was my favorite kind of music, absolute, terrified compliance. I am Hwan Bae. People call me the algorithm king because I don't believe in luck, and I certainly don't believe in human error. I believe in code. Code is clean. Code doesn't lie. Code doesn't show up 30 seconds late because of a family emergency. "Sir, please, my daughter." "Your daughter is not a Baytech asset," I cut him off, finally looking up. My gaze was a physical weight. "Efficiency is. Leave." As the doors hissed shut, I felt a familiar boredom creeping in. My life was a series of perfectly executed commands. Wake up at 4:30 a.m. Protein shake. 3-piece charcoal suit. Crush the competition. Repeat. It was a flawless system until the music started. It was faint at first, a heavy, rhythmic thumping that didn't belong in a 60-story glass tower. Thump thump clap. It was vibrating through the triple-paned windows of my private office. I frowned, my jaw tightening. My board members exchanged nervous glances. "What is that noise?" I demanded. Before anyone could answer, the noise became a roar. It was Afrobeats, something loud, soulful, and unapologetically chaotic. I turned toward the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the Seoul skyline. And there she was. Suspended on a professional cleaning rig, a woman was quite literally dancing while she mopped. She wasn't just cleaning, she was performing. Her skin was a deep, stunning mahogany that glowed against the bright orange of her janitor's jumpsuit. Her hair was pulled back into a tight, curly afro puff that defied gravity. She had white AirPods in, and she was lost in a world I didn't understand. She caught my eye through the glass. Instead of looking away in fear, she winked. She actually winked at me. Then, she started doing a footwork move that involved her sliding across the wet ledge of the rig. "Is that a janitor filming a TikTok?" one of my directors whispered, horrified. "Get her down," I hissed, my blood beginning to simmer. Now. But the universe had other plans for my perfect day. As she reached for a bucket, her foot caught on a safety cable. The rig jerked. The latch on my reinforced window, the one that was supposed to be unhackable and unbreakable, gave way with a sickening crack. Time slowed down. The window swung inward like a giant glass mouth. The woman screamed, a high-pitched, melodic sound, and she didn't just fall, she launched. She flew through the opening, her mop spinning like a helicopter blade, and landed squarely, violently, in my lap. The impact knocked the wind out of me. My expensive ergonomic chair spun wildly. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the sensation of the heat. My hand was still holding my custom-blended African roast coffee, the only luxury I allowed myself. As she hit me, the dark, scalding liquid exploded upward, drenching my crisp, white $3,000 shirt, my silk tie, and the mahogany skin of the woman currently gasping for air on top of me. "Oh, sugar," she gasped, her voice thick with an Atlanta accent that sounded like warm honey. She scrambled to sit up, but her knees were hooked over the arms of my chair. We were chest to chest, her heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. "Oh man, you're soaked." I couldn't breathe. Not because of the coffee, but because of the sheer audacity of her presence. She smelled like cocoa butter and lavender, a scent that shouldn't exist in a room that smelled like ozone and expensive cologne. Her eyes were huge, a warm amber brown, and for a second, the algorithm king forgot his next line of code. "Get off me," I managed to choke out, my voice trembling with a rage so cold it should have frozen the spilled coffee. She didn't flinch. She actually looked at the massive brown stains spreading across my chest and let out a short, sharp laugh. Honestly, it's an improvement. You looked like a funeral director before. A little color suits you, Mr. Grumpy. The entire boardroom gasped in unison. I felt the heat rising in my neck. Do you have any idea who I am? Do you have any idea what you've just destroyed? A shirt? She rolled her eyes, finally sliding off my lap and standing up. She was shorter than me, but she stood like she owned the building. She wiped a smudge of coffee off her jumpsuit and looked at me with a smirk that made my vision blur. It's cotton, honey. It washes. My heart, on the other hand, that was a 60-foot drop. You should be thanking me for my reflexes. Reflexes? I stood up, the wet fabric clinging to my skin. You were dancing. You were filming yourself while neglecting your duties. You are fired. Beyond fired. I will make sure you never mop a floor in this country again. She narrowed her eyes, the playfulness vanishing. First of all, I wasn't just dancing. I was optimizing my mood for a boring-ass job. Second, your window latch was faulty. It's been vibrating at a frequency of 60 Hz for the last 20 minutes. If I hadn't fallen through it, it would have shattered inward on its own in another hour. So, technically, I saved your life. You're welcome. I opened my mouth to shred her to pieces, but a bright flash from outside stopped me. I turned. Down on the street, and from the building across the way, long-range lenses were clicking. The secret window of Hwan Bae had been breached, and the image of a beautiful black woman in my lap was already being uploaded to every server in the city. My phone on the table began to buzz incessantly. It was my grandfather, the chairman. I didn't need to answer it to know what he was going to say. The algorithm king had a glitch. And she was standing right in front of me, checking her lip tint in the reflection of my blackened computer screen. If you're already hooked on the chaos between the Ice King and his drama queen, make sure to hit that like button, leave a comment about your favorite K-drama trope, and subscribe to Stories Pulse so you don't miss the moment this contract gets spicy. Winnie looked at the chaos she'd caused, then back at me. She didn't look scared. She looked bored. Look, Mr. CEO, she said, picking up her mop. I've got a brother to take care of and a shift to finish. Since I'm fired, I guess I'll just go. Have fun with the dry cleaners. Stay right there, I commanded. I don't take orders from men in stained shirts, she shot back, heading for the door. I wasn't asking, I said, my voice dropping an octave. Look at the news. I swiped my hand over the table's glass surface, projecting the local news feed onto the wall. There was a photo. It looked intimate. It looked scandalous. It looked like the one thing I couldn't afford, a distraction. Bae-taek heir's secret lover? Who is the mystery woman in Hwan Bae's private office? Winnie stared at the screen, her jaw dropping slightly. Oh, hell no. My braids weren't even fresh in that shot. They caught my bad side. Your bad side is the least of our problems, I said, stepping toward her. I was a foot taller, and I used every inch of it to try and intimidate her. You have just compromised a $5 billion merger. My grandfather believes that a stable man is a profitable man. This image? It makes me look human. It makes me look impulsive. Being human is a bad thing? She scoffed, stepping into my space, her head tilted back to meet my eyes. No wonder your office feels like a refrigerator. You're not a CEO, you're a robot. I am efficient, I corrected. And right now, the most efficient way to handle this glitch is to control the narrative. The door to the boardroom burst open. My grandfather, Chairman Bae, walked in with his cane thumping against the floor. He didn't look at me. He looked straight at Winnie. He scanned her from her neon sneakers to her mahogany skin, his eyes narrowing. She's striking, the old man murmured in Korean. Then, in English, he said, You. Girl. Are you his mistress? Winnie didn't blink. Sir, I don't even like this man's tie. I was cleaning the windows. The public doesn't care about windows, my grandfather snapped. He looked at me, his eyes sharp. Hwan. The board is already panicking. They think you've been hiding a scandalous life. If we deny this, The press will dig until they find out she's a janitor, and then they'll say you're elitist. But if she is your fiancé? If this was a passionate reunion? Absolutely not, I said. Wait, back up, Winnie said, holding up a hand. Fiancé? I don't even know his middle name. Is it asshole? Because that would fit. My grandfather chuckled, a sound like dry leaves. She has spirit. Hwan, you need a wife to inherit the full estate by the end of the year. You've rejected every socialite I've sent you. This girl, she provides a diversity of image we need. A genius-level PR move. She becomes a secret genius you met abroad. It explains your coldness. You were pining for her. I looked at Winnie. She was leaning against my expensive desk, picking at a fingernail. She looked like a nightmare wrapped in a mahogany dream. I need a wife, I said, my voice low, speaking more to myself than them. And she needs. I need $500,000, Winnie said suddenly, her voice dropping the humor. Her amber eyes turned deadly serious. My brother is in Atlanta. He needs a heart procedure that insurance won't touch. I came here to work and hide, but if you want me to play Barbie for your company, it's going to cost you. I felt a surge of something, not respect, but recognition. She was a hunter. Just like me. 99 days, I said, stepping closer to her. The smell of her cocoa butter was making my head swim. You move into my house. You attend every event. You follow my script. No dancing. No Afrobeats. No optimizing my life. In return, I pay for the surgery and give you a bonus to disappear forever when the timer hits 0. Winnie looked at my hand, then at my face. A slow, predatory smile spread across her lips. 99 days in the refrigerator with the Ice King? Fine. But I have 2 conditions. I'm listening. 1. No touching. Unless the cameras are on, stay on your side of the line. And 2. She reached out and flicked my silk tie. I get to choose my own clothes. I am not wearing your boring-ass grayscale wardrobe. Deal, I said, reaching out my hand to seal the contract. She didn't shake it. She grabbed my hand and pulled me toward her, leaning in until her lips were an inch from my ear. I could feel the heat radiating off her. One more thing, Hwan, she whispered, her voice a low vibration that traveled straight down my spine. Don't fall in love with me. I'm a very expensive glitch to fix. She pulled away, leaving me standing in my ruined office, my heart doing something it hadn't done in years. It was skipping a beat. The move-in was a tactical disaster. I stood in the center of my living room, a space designed by the top minimalist architects in Seoul, a cathedral of white marble and silent shadows, and watched as 3 moving men hauled in crates that smelled like spices and made loud decisions. Careful with that one, Winnie shouted, pointing at a massive, vibrantly painted trunk. She wasn't in her janitor jumpsuit anymore. She was wearing oversized neon green cargo pants and a tiny black crop top that showed off her toned midriff and the rich, dark glow of her skin. That's my vibe, Box. If you break my speakers, the Ice King here will have to sing to me, and nobody wants that. I crossed my arms, my charcoal suit feeling suddenly too tight. This is a residence, Winifred. Not a nightclub. My neighbors are some of the most powerful politicians in Korea. Then they're probably bored out of their minds, she said, spinning around to face me. She'd changed her hair, now long, honey blonde tipped braids swung around her waist, clicking softly like high-tech wind chimes. She looked me up and down, a slow, judgmental scan. And stop calling me Winifred. I sound like a librarian from the 1800s. It's Winnie. Or my queen if you're feeling spicy. I don't feel spicy, I said, my voice dropping to its coldest register. I feel like I've allowed a tropical storm into a clean room. Good, she chirped, stepping right into my personal space. She didn't smell like soap anymore. She smelled like vanilla and something sharp, like ginger. She reached out, her fingers hovering just an inch from my chest. You need the humidity, Hwan. Your skin looks like it's about to crack from all that repressed emotion. I didn't move. I shouldn't have been affected, but the way her amber eyes searched mine felt like she was trying to debug my soul. Rule 1, I reminded her, my voice slightly raspy. No touching. I'm not touching, she whispered, her gaze dropping to my lips for a split second before she pulled away with a triumphant smirk. I'm just observing the specimen. By dinner, the specimen was ready to commit a felony. I sat at my long, glass dining table, staring at the bowl of steamed chicken and kale my nutritionist had prepared. Across from me, Winnie was eating something that looked like a crime scene. Is that red? I asked, pointing at her plate. It's jollof rice, Hwan. Try it. It has this thing called flavor. It's a revolutionary concept, I know. She shoveled a forkful into her mouth, looking blissfully happy. I have a strict intake of 2,200 calories of optimized fuel, I said. You have a strict intake of misery, she countered. She got up, walked around the table, and, before I could protest, she shoved a spoonful of the red rice toward my face. Open up. One bite. If you don't like it, I'll let you pick my outfit for the press conference tomorrow. I looked at the rice. I looked at her, her playful expression, the way her glossed lips were parted in anticipation. It was a trap. But the thought of choosing her clothes, of putting her back into a gray suit, was too tempting. I opened my mouth. The explosion of spice was immediate. It was hot, smoky, and dangerously delicious. My eyes watered instantly. Oh, God, I wheezed, grabbing my water. Winnie burst out laughing, a deep, melodic sound that filled the hollow house. Look at you. You're turning pink. The Ice King is melting. It's unacceptable, I choked out, but I found myself taking another small bite when she wasn't looking. It was the first time I'd felt a physical sensation other than cold in years. Later that night, the house was supposed to be silent. My schedule said 2,200 hours sleep. But as I lay in my oversized bed, I heard a low, rhythmic thumping coming from the guest wing. I marched down the hallway and flung the door open. Winnie was sitting on the floor, surrounded by 3 different laptops. The room was bathed in the blue light of code. She wasn't dancing now. She was focused. Her glasses were perched on the bridge of her nose, and her fingers were flying across the keys at a speed that made my own professional developers look like toddlers. What are you doing? I demanded. She didn't look up. Your security system for the new Baytech handheld? It's garbage, Hwan. I'm rewriting the kernel. Your unhackable firewall has a backdoor wide enough to drive a truck through. I walked over, leaning over her shoulder to look at the screen. My breath caught. She wasn't just fixing it, she was re-engineering the entire architecture. It was elegant. It was beautiful. Where did you learn this? I whispered, my chest brushing against her shoulder. YouTube. Late nights in Atlanta when I couldn't sleep because the neighborhood was too loud, she said, her voice softening. She finally looked up at me, our faces inches apart in the dark. The blue light made her skin look like polished velvet. I'm a glitch, remember? I see the things people try to hide. The silence in the room changed. It wasn't the silence of a grave anymore. It was the silence of a loaded gun. I could see the pulse in her neck. I could feel the heat radiating off her body, calling to the coldness in mine. You're not a glitch, Winnie, I said, my voice barely a whisper. You're a system override. She didn't look away. Her hand moved, almost of its own accord, toward my face. Her thumb brushed against my jawline, soft, warm, and utterly forbidden. Rule 1, she breathed, her eyes searching mine. No touching, Hwan. I hate rules, I said, leaning closer until I could feel her breath on my lips. Suddenly, a bright light flooded the room. I jumped back as if I'd been electrocuted. My mother, the dowager of the Bae family, stood in the doorway, her face a mask of frozen horror. Hwan, she gasped. What is this person doing in our home? Winnie didn't miss a beat. She stood up, adjusted her crop top, and flashed a smile that was pure venom. Oh, hi, Mom. I was just showing Hwan how to handle his hardware. I'm Winnie, the girl who's about to make your son very, very famous. My mother looked like she was about to faint. I looked at Winnie, who gave me a wink so wicked it made my heart pound. This wasn't just a contract anymore. This was a war. And I was starting to realize that I didn't want to win it. I wanted to be taken prisoner. My mother, Park Ji-won, didn't just enter a room, she colonized it. She stood there in a Chanel suit that cost more than a mid-sized sedan, her eyes raking over Winnie like she was a stain on the silk wallpaper. The silence that stretched between them was thick enough to choke on. I could feel the microscopic shift in the air, the high-pressure system of my mother's old money expectations colliding with the Category 5 hurricane that was Winifred Adana. "Hwan," my mother said, her voice like a violin string pulled too tight. "Explain." "Now." I cleared my throat, stepping out of the blue glow of Winnie's hacking den. My heart was still hammering against my ribs from how close Winnie's thumb had been to my skin. "Mother, this is Winifred. My fiancé. I told you I had found someone who matched my intellectual intensity." Winnie didn't just stand there. She leaned back against the mahogany desk, crossed her ankles, and let out a soft, humored huff. "Intellectual intensity? Is that what we're calling it now, Hwan? I thought you liked me because I'm the only person who tells you when your breath smells like kale and disappointment." My mother's eyes widened until I thought they might actually crack. "Hwana, she is vocal. And she is wearing, is that a bra? In my son's home." "It's a crop top, Mrs. Bae," Winnie said, her Atlanta drawl thickening, becoming more melodic and defiant. She stepped forward, the honey blonde tips of her braids dancing against her shoulders. She didn't bow. She didn't even lower her gaze. "And technically, since we're engaged, it's our home. I was just helping your son fix his security. He's got some serious backdoor issues. Right, babe?" She winked at me. The audacity of it made my stomach flip in a way that had nothing to do with my strict diet. "Mother, it's late," I said, stepping between them. "Winifred is tired from her flight from London." I'd have to lie. Telling my mother she was from Atlanta and worked as a janitor would have caused a literal stroke. "We have a press conference tomorrow. Let's discuss this then." My mother looked at Winnie one last time, a look that promised war, and turned on her heel without a word. The door clicked shut and the silence returned, but it was different now. It was charged. Winnie let out a long breath and slumped back into her chair. "London? Really, Hwan? Do I look like I drink tea and talk about the Queen? I'm from the A. I'm hot lemon pepper sprinkles, not scones and jam." "It's a cover, Winnie," I snapped, though the heat in my voice was fading. "My mother is the gatekeeper of the Bay reputation. If she thinks you're a commoner, she will dismantle you before the first camera clicks." Winnie stood up, walking toward me slowly. She stopped so close I could see the golden flecks in her amber eyes. "Me? Honey, I've been dismantled by experts. I grew up in a neighborhood where you had to be twice as smart and 3 times as loud just to get a seat at the table. Your mom? She's just a boss fight. I've already got the cheat codes." She reached out, Rule 1 be damned, and straightened my lapel. Her touch was light, but it felt like a brand. "But you're the real glitch. You're terrified that if you let one person in, your whole Ice King operating system is going to crash, aren't you?" "I am not terrified," I whispered, my gaze dropping to her lips. "I am focused." "Keep telling yourself that," she breathed. "See you at the press conference, Mr. CEO. Try not to sweat through your suit." She walked past me, her hip brushing mine accidentally, and the scent of vanilla lingered in the air long after she'd shut her bedroom door. I stood in the dark, my hands clenched into fists. I needed to update my firewall. My heart was starting to leak data. The morning of the press conference was a choreographed nightmare. My PR team was in a frenzy, trying to scrub Winnie of her street edges. They brought in a fleet of stylists with racks of muted beige and gray dresses. "Absolutely not," Winnie's voice boomed from the dressing room. A stylist ran out, looking like she'd seen a ghost. "Sir." She refused the Dior. She said it made her look like a sad mushroom. I rubbed my temples. Let her wear what she wants. Just get her to the podium. When Winnie finally stepped out, the entire lobby of Baytech went silent. She was a vision of controlled chaos. She'd chosen a structured, electric orange blazer with matching high-waisted trousers. Her hair was styled in a massive, regal afro puff adorned with gold cuffs that caught every light in the room. Around her neck was a heavy gold choker. She didn't look like a janitor. She didn't even look like a CEO's wife. She looked like the CEO of the world. "Ready to break the internet, Hwan?" she asked, sliding her arm through mine. "You look bright," I managed to say. "I look expensive," she corrected. "Now remember the plan. Look at me like I'm the only source of oxygen in the room. If you look like a robot, they'll know it's fake." We walked into the auditorium. The flashbulbs were blinding, a strobe light of curiosity and judgment. We sat at the long table, the Baytech logo shimmering behind us. The first question came from a veteran tech journalist. "Mr. Bae, rumors say this woman was a janitor in your building. Others say she's a secret fiancé. Which is it?" I felt my jaw tighten. I prepared my rehearsed script about her being a private consultant, but Winnie beat me to it. She leaned into the microphone, her voice smooth and dripping with charm. "A janitor? Well, I suppose I did clean up a few things. Mostly Hwan's terrible taste in ties and his outdated encryption protocols." A ripple of laughter went through the room. "I'm Winifred Adana," she continued, her eyes sparkling. "I'm a systems architect. Hwan and I met while I was doing some freelance security auditing for his firm in Europe. We kept it private because, well, look at him. He's the Ice King. He didn't want the world to know he'd fallen for a girl who can outcode him before her first cup of coffee." She looked at me then. It was supposed to be a fake look of love, but the way her eyes lingered on mine felt dangerously real. I found myself reaching for her hand under the table. Our fingers locked. Her palm was warm, slightly damp, and she squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. "Is it true, Mr. Bae?" another reporter shouted. "Did she really outcode you?" I looked at the crowd, then back at Winnie. The algorithm king was supposed to be untouchable. But as I looked at this woman, this brilliant, beautiful glitch who was currently holding my hand like a lifeline, I realized that the truth was more interesting than the lie. "She didn't just outcode me," I said, my voice steady for the first time that day. "She rewrote the entire system. I'm just lucky she decided to stay for the beta test." The room erupted. The contract was working. The stock price was probably soaring. But as Winnie leaned in and whispered, "Nice one, Bae," I realized the real danger wasn't the press. It was the fact that I didn't want the 99 days to ever end. But then, the doors at the back of the hall opened. Minseo, my ex-fiancé, walked in. She was wearing a pale white suit, her face a mask of porcelain perfection. She didn't look at the press. She looked straight at Winnie. "A systems architect?" Minseo's voice echoed through the microphone as she approached the stage. "That's a very pretty title for someone who doesn't exist in any university database in the world. Tell me, Winifred, which London firm did you work for? Or should we talk about the janitor's closet on the 4th floor where you keep your mop?" The silence that followed was deafening. I felt Winnie's hand tremble in mine. The glitch was about to be exposed. The silence in the auditorium was so heavy I could hear the hum of the cooling fans in the server racks behind the stage. Minseo stood at the base of the podium, her chin tilted up, looking like a porcelain doll made of ice and spite. The press went feral. Cameras shifted from me to Winnie, then to Minseo, back and forth like a high-speed tennis match. I felt Winnie's fingers twitch in mine. For a split second, the drama queen facade flickered. I felt the girl from Atlanta, the one who had scraped by on grit and self-taught code, start to retreat. I couldn't let that happen. Not here. Not in front of these vultures. "Minseo," I said, my voice cutting through the murmurs like a scalpel. "This is a private press conference for Baytech shareholders. You aren't a shareholder. You're a legacy contact I haven't deleted yet." A few reporters gasped. Minseo's perfect face tightened, a microcrack in her mask. "Oh, Hwana. always so protective. But the shareholders deserve the truth. This woman, Winifred? She doesn't have a degree from Oxford. She doesn't even have a LinkedIn profile that predates last week. She's a ghost. A beautiful, dark-skinned ghost you found in the hallway with a bucket of soapy water. Winnie pulled her hand out of mine. My palm felt suddenly, painfully cold. She stood up, smoothing the front of her electric orange blazer. She didn't look at the press. She looked directly at Mincio. "You're right," Winnie said. Her voice wasn't shaking. It was lower now, resonant and dangerous. "I don't have a degree from Oxford. I don't have a trust fund, and I definitely don't have a stylist who tells me how to breathe. I learned to code in a basement in Georgia while my neighbors were blasting music and the police sirens were the only lullaby I had." She stepped around the table, walking to the edge of the stage. She looked down at Mincio, who looked tiny in comparison. "I'm self-taught," Winnie continued, her Atlanta drawl becoming a weapon of pride. "And while you were learning how to hold a teacup at some finishing school, I was hacking into encrypted databases for fun because I was bored. Hwan didn't hire me for my resume. He hired me because I found a flaw in his unhackable system in 30 seconds using a mop and a smartphone. So, if you want to talk about ghosts, honey, let's talk about your father's logistics company. The one that's been ghosting its taxes for the last 3 fiscal years? I saw the ledger while I was cleaning the server room this morning. The room went absolutely nuclear." Mincio turned white, whiter than her suit. She opened her mouth to speak, but the reporters had already turned their microphones toward her, shouting questions about tax evasion. Winnie turned back to me, her eyes burning with a mixture of triumph and something else, a raw, vulnerable heat. She gave me a tiny, nearly invisible nod. "This conference is over," I announced, standing up and grabbing Winnie's arm. We practically ran to the private elevator. The doors hissed shut, sealing us in the mirrored box. The silence was immediate. I looked at our reflection. I was still in my charcoal suit, looking every bit the Ice King, but my tie was crooked. Winnie was breathing hard, her chest heaving, the gold cuffs in her hair shimmering. You mentioned her father's taxes," I said, breathless. "Did you actually find that?" Winnie leaned her head against the mirror, a shaky laugh escaping her lips. "I spent 5 minutes on his private cloud while I was waiting for my coffee this morning. The encryption was a joke, Hwan. Like, password 123 level of a joke. I didn't think I'd have to use it so soon." I looked at her, truly looked at her. She wasn't just a glitch. She was a genius. And she was standing in my elevator, smelling like victory and vanilla. "You saved the merger," I whispered. "I saved my brother's surgery," she corrected, her voice soft. She looked up at me, her amber eyes searching mine. "Is that all I am to you, Hwan?" "A successful merger." The elevator reached the penthouse. The doors opened, but neither of us moved. The no-touching rule felt like a physical barrier, a wall of glass between us. I wanted to reach out and pull her to me. I wanted to tell her that the 99 days felt like a death sentence because it meant there was an end date. "You're a system override, Winnie," I said, repeating my words from the night before. "And right now, my entire internal logic is failing." She stepped closer, her hand rising to my chest, hovering over my heart. "Is it failing? Or is it finally starting to beat, Hwan?" Before I could answer, the elevator chimes rang again. My assistant was standing there, looking flustered. "Sir, the chairman, your grandfather. He's at the mansion. He wants to celebrate the success of the announcement. He's ordered a traditional Korean feast." Winnie groaned, dropping her hand. "Another dinner? Can I at least wear my sweatpants this time?" "No," I said, a small, genuine smile tugging at the corners of my mouth, a smile that didn't belong to the Ice King. "But you can bring the spicy rice. I think my grandfather needs a system reboot too." The dinner at the mansion was a masterclass in tension. My grandfather sat at the head of the table, his eyes darting between me and Winnie. He was impressed by her performance at the press conference, but he was a traditionalist. He wanted to see if she could handle the Bae way of life. "Winifred," my grandfather said, using his ivory chopsticks to point at a dish of fermented vegetables. In Korea, we value harmony. We value the quiet strength of a woman who supports her husband from the shadows. You're not very quiet. Winnie was currently trying to use her chopsticks to pick up a slippery piece of octopus. She paused, looking at the old man. Sir, with all due respect, the shadows are where bugs grow. I prefer the light. It's easier to see the truth that way. I suppressed a cough. Grandfather Winifred's directness is what makes her valuable to the firm. She sees what others miss. I see that she has changed you, Hwan, the chairman mused. You're wearing a blue tie. You hate blue. You said it was inefficient because it reminded you of the sky, which encourages daydreaming. I looked down at my tie. I hadn't even realized I'd picked it. It was the blue of the Atlanta sky Winnie had described to me once. It's just a tie, grandfather, I muttered. It's a symptom, the old man countered. He turned back to Winnie. Tomorrow is the National Tech Gala. Every major investor in Asia will be there. Minseo's family will be looking for blood after what you did today. If you slip up once, if you show even a hint that this marriage is anything less than a soulmate connection, the stocks will plummet, and I will be forced to nullify Hwan's inheritance. Winnie set her chopsticks down. Her playful demeanor vanished. I don't slip up, Chairman. I've been playing a character my whole life just to survive. Playing a billionaire's wife is easy. The hard part is pretending I actually like his taste in interior design. My grandfather laughed, a deep, booming sound I hadn't heard in years. I like her, Hwan. She's dangerous. But remember, in this world, danger is only attractive until it starts to hurt you. After the chairman left, the house felt too large, too quiet. Winnie and I stood in the kitchen. She was drinking a glass of water, her orange blazer discarded on a stool. He's right, she said, staring out at the city lights. I am dangerous for you, Hwan. I'm messy. I'm loud. I'm everything your algorithm says is a failure. I walked over to her, stopping just behind her. I didn't touch her, but I could feel the heat of her back against my chest. The algorithm is based on data, Winnie. And the data I have now says that my life was a series of zeros before you fell through that window. You brought the one back into the code. She turned around in my arms, her face inches from mine. The moonlight through the kitchen window turned her skin into dark silk. 99 days, Hwan. We're on day 7. What happens when the counter hits 0? I don't know, I whispered. I haven't programmed that far ahead yet. She reached up, her fingers tangling in the hair at the nape of my neck. It was the first time she'd touched me without a camera watching. It wasn't a drama queen move. It was a woman looking at a man. Then maybe she breathed, her lips brushing against my jaw. We should stop worrying about the program and just enjoy the glitch. I leaned in, my heart racing, my no-touching rule shattered into a million pieces. But just as my lips were about to touch hers, her phone buzzed on the counter. It was a video call from the hospital in Atlanta. Winnie pulled away instantly, her face pale. It's my brother. She answered the call, and I watched as her face transformed from a woman in love to a sister in agony. On the screen, a small boy lay in a hospital bed, tubes everywhere. Hey, Peanut, Winnie whispered, her voice cracking. I'm here. I'm getting the money. Just hang on, okay? Big sis is almost there. I stood there, watching her, and I realized that to her I wasn't a man. I was a transaction. I was the $500,000 he needed to live. The pain that shot through my chest was sharper than any coffee burn. The silence in the kitchen wasn't the comfortable quiet of two people sharing a midnight snack anymore. It was the sterile, terrifying silence of a hospital waiting room. I stood by the marble island, watching Winnie's face. The vibrant, chaos queen light in her eyes had been snuffed out, replaced by a raw, agonizing desperation as she stared at the glowing screen of her phone. Peanut, you gotta breathe for me, okay? Winnie's voice was a jagged whisper. She was huddled over the counter, her long honey-blonde braids veiling her face. The doctors in Seoul. They're the best, baby. I'm making sure they get everything they need. You just keep fighting. You're a king, remember? Kings don't quit. I watched her shoulders shake. This was the interiority I hadn't prepared for. My algorithm had accounted for her bravado, her sharp tongue, and her genius-level intellect. It hadn't accounted for the crushing weight of a 24-year-old girl carrying the life of her younger brother on her back while dancing in a foreign billionaire's spotlight. She hung up the phone and stood there, her forehead pressed against the cold stone of the counter. I didn't move. My internal logic was screaming at me to maintain distance, to remain the Ice King who provides the funds but keeps his heart in a vault. But my body moved before my brain could stop it. I stepped forward, stopping just inches behind her. "Winifred," I said, my voice lower than I intended. She spun around, her eyes wet and fierce. She swiped a hand across her cheeks, a jagged, defiant movement. Don't look at me like I'm a charity case, Hwan. I know the deal. I'm the glitch you bought for 99 days. I'm the actress in the orange suit. I'm getting my brother his heart, and you're getting your inheritance. It's clean. It's business. Is that all it is? I asked. The words felt like they were being dragged out of me. A business transaction? What else could it be? She shot back, her Atlanta drawl sharp as a razor. You're the man who fires people for being 30 seconds late. You're the man who thinks emotions are inefficient. I'm just a line of code you're using to fix a bug in your reputation. Let's not pretend this is a fairy tale, Hwan. In 92 days, I'm back in Georgia, and you're back in your white-on-white castle alone. The word alone hit me harder than the coffee ever had. I looked around my kitchen, the stainless steel, the perfection, the lack of soul. She was right. But the thought of the silence returning felt like a death sentence. Go to sleep, Winnie, I said, my voice hardening again. I had to retreat. My firewall was failing. We have the National Tech Gala tomorrow. If you look like you've been crying, the press will say I'm mistreating you. And that would be inefficient. She let out a dry, bitter laugh and walked past me. As she hit the doorway, she paused, not looking back. You know, Hwan, for a man who's so obsessed with data, you're really bad at reading what's right in front of your face. The National Tech Gala was the final boss of our first week. The grand ballroom of the Shilla Hotel was a sea of black tuxedos and shimmering silk. This wasn't just a party. It was a battlefield where billions of dollars changed hands over glasses of vintage champagne. I stood at the top of the grand staircase, tugging at my cuffs. I was wearing a midnight black velvet tuxedo, my hair swept back in a way that felt like armor. Beside me, the space was empty. The guests below were already whispering, their eyes darting toward me. "Where is she?" my grandfather hissed, appearing at my elbow. "The investors from Singapore are asking if the secret fiancé was just a fever dream." "She's coming, grandfather," I said, though my pulse was beginning to skip. Then, the double doors at the top of the stairs groaned open. The room didn't just go quiet, it stopped breathing. Winnie stepped out, and for the first time in my life, I felt my knees actually weaken. She had discarded the orange for something far more dangerous. She was wearing a gown of liquid gold, a shimmering, metallic silk that draped over her mahogany skin like it was poured on. It had a high slit that showed off her athletic legs and a back so low it was scandalous. Her hair was no longer in braids, it was a massive, voluminous halo of natural curls, pinned back on one side with a diamond-encrusted Baetek brooch. She looked like a goddess of war. She walked toward me with that main character gait, her golden heels clicking against the marble like a countdown. "You're late," I whispered as she reached my side. She leaned in, her lips brushing my ear, sending a jolt of pure electricity through my frame. A queen arrives exactly when she intends to, Hwan. Besides, I had to hack into the hotel's lighting system. Check the chandeliers in 5 minutes. Winnie, no. Shoo, she smiled, sliding her hand into the crook of my arm. Smile, Ice King. The vultures are watching. We descended the stairs. It was a gauntlet of fake smiles and sharp questions. I felt the familiar weight of judgment from the elite of Seoul, but with Winnie on my arm, the weight felt lighter. She didn't just navigate the room, she conquered it. She spoke to the Japanese investors in broken but charming Japanese. She laughed at the chairman's jokes, and she managed to make every man in the room look at me with a mixture of envy and fear. But then, we hit the center of the room, and there stood Min-seo and her mother. They were flanked by the CEOs of 3 rival tech firms. Min-seo was wearing a pale lavender dress that looked virginal and sweet, the perfect contrast to Winnie's liquid gold fire. Hwana, Min-seo's mother purred, her eyes like cold stones. Your companion certainly knows how to attract attention. It's quite a bold choice for a formal event. It almost looks like a costume, doesn't it? Winnie didn't miss a beat. She adjusted her grip on my arm, pulling me slightly closer until our shoulders were pinned together. In my culture, we don't hide our light to make small people feel comfortable, Mrs. Park. I thought a tech gala was about the future. Why does everyone here look like they're dressed for a 1950s debutante ball? Min-seo stepped forward, her voice a sharp hiss. You think a gold dress makes you one of us? You're a janitor playing dress-up. I've already spoken to the board. We've found the gap in your story. There was no consultancy in London. You were a nobody in Atlanta who couldn't even pay her rent. I felt Winnie's arm stiffen. This was the moment. The breaking point. Is that so? Winnie asked, her voice dangerously calm. She reached into her small gold clutch and pulled out a sleek, black Baytech smartphone, the prototype we hadn't even released yet. Since we're talking about gaps, Min-seo, let's talk about the gap in your family's R&D department. You've been trying to replicate Hwan's new AI kernel for months, haven't you? Min-seo scoffed. That's proprietary information. It's stolen information, Winnie corrected. Suddenly, the massive digital screens around the ballroom flickered. The elegant visuals of Baytech's history vanished, replaced by a scrolling line of green code. I took the liberty of optimizing the hotel's network while I was getting ready. If you look at the screens, you'll see a direct log of the IP addresses that tried to breach the Baytech mainframe last night. Oh look, they all originate from your father's office. The ballroom erupted in a collective gasp. I looked at the screens, then at Winnie. She had done it. She hadn't just defended herself. She had launched a full-scale digital counteroffensive in front of the entire industry. This is a lie, Min-seo's father shouted, pushing through the crowd. The logs don't lie, sir, Winnie said, her amber eyes glowing with a terrifying brilliance. People lie. Code is the only thing in this room that's actually honest. She turned to me, her expression softening for just a fraction of a second. Shall we dance, Hwan? I think the air in here just got a little too inefficient for me. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I led her to the center of the dance floor. The orchestra began a slow, sweeping waltz, but we didn't dance like the others. We didn't keep the proper distance. I pulled her into me, my hand splayed across the bare skin of her lower back. The no-touching rule was dead and buried. You're insane, I whispered as we spun. You could have destroyed the entire hotel network. But I didn't, she breathed, her eyes locked onto mine. I only destroyed the people who tried to hurt you. Isn't that what a fiancé does? The music slowed. The rest of the world faded into a blur of gold and black. We were 2 celestial bodies caught in a private orbit. I could feel the heat of her skin, the scent of her vanilla perfume, and the frantic beat of her heart against my chest. I realized then that I wasn't just losing my inheritance or my reputation. I was losing the war against myself. Winnie, I murmured, my hand sliding up her back to the nape of her neck. She tilted her head back, her lips parted, her breath hitching. Day 10, Hwan. We still have 89 days left. I don't care about the days, I said, leaning in. Our faces were inches apart. The tension was a physical force, a glitch in the universe that refused to be fixed. I wanted to kiss her more than I wanted my next breath. I wanted to tell her that I would pay for 1,000 surgeries if it meant she would never look at me as a transaction again. But just as my lips brushed hers, the music stopped. A heavy hand landed on my shoulder. It was Michael, the handsome, charismatic black tech mogul from Atlanta I'd heard about. He was wearing a white tuxedo that made his skin look like velvet, and he was smiling at Winnie with a familiarity that made my blood turn to ice. "Winnie B," he said, his voice a deep, smooth baritone. "I thought that was you. What is a girl like you doing in a place like this with a man who looks like he's never seen the sun?" Winnie pulled away from me, her face lighting up with a genuine, joyful smile I hadn't seen yet. "Michael, what are you doing in Seoul?" I stood there, the Ice King frozen in his own ballroom, as the woman I was falling for threw her arms around another man. The jealousy that ripped through me was a data point I wasn't prepared to process. The ballroom of the Shilla Hotel was a shimmering masterpiece of gold and light, but as I watched Winifred, my Winifred, at least for the next 89 days, throw her arms around this stranger, the entire room felt like it had been plunged into a sub-zero vacuum. My hand, which had been resting on the small of her back just seconds ago, felt a phantom heat that was rapidly turning into a frostbite of pure, unadulterated jealousy. Michael. He was taller than me, his shoulders broader, and he wore a white tuxedo with the kind of effortless grace that made my bespoke black velvet feel like a straitjacket. He didn't just look at Winnie, he looked through her, with a history in his eyes that I couldn't hack or outcode. "Michael, what are you doing in Seoul?" Winnie's voice was a pitch higher, a melody of genuine surprise and relief. She pulled back from the hug, but she kept her hands on his forearms. "I thought you were in Silicon Valley fixing the world's cloud storage. I heard a rumor that a certain genius from the A was out here making waves in the K-drama circuit," Michael said, his voice a smooth, low baritone that seemed to vibrate in the very air between us. He glanced at me, his smile widening into something that felt like a challenge. "And I see you found yourself a very formal shadow." I stepped forward, my face a mask of frozen granite. I didn't offer my hand. I offered my presence, a wall of cold authority. "Hwan Bae," I said, my voice clipping every syllable. "CEO of Baytech. And Winifred's fiancé." Winnie's head snapped toward me, her amber eyes widening at the possessive bite in my tone. She cleared her throat, a flush deepening the mahogany of her cheeks. "Right. Sorry. Michael, this is Hwan. Hwan, this is Michael Vance. He's the reason I didn't get arrested when I was 16. He's the best cybersecurity consultant in Atlanta." "Consultant?" I repeated, my gaze flicking over his expensive watch. "You seem to be doing well for a consultant." "I own Vance Global," Michael countered, his tone pleasant but his eyes sharp. "We handle the security for most of the Fortune 500. I'm actually in town to discuss a partnership with your rival, Minseo's father. But seeing Winnie here, well, that changes the itinerary." He turned back to Winnie, ignoring me as if I were a piece of office furniture. "I heard about Peanut, Winnie. I've been trying to reach you. You didn't have to come all the way here. You know I would have covered the surgery. You didn't have to sell yourself into a contract." The word contract hung in the air like a poisonous gas. My heart skipped a beat. How much did he know? Winnie's expression shifted, the drama queen mask falling away to reveal the raw, tired girl underneath. "It's not like that, Mike. It's an opportunity. For both of us." "Is it?" Michael stepped closer, his voice dropping to a private whisper that I wasn't meant to hear, though I caught every word. "Because you look like you're living in a glass cage. This isn't you, Winnie. The girl I know dances in the rain and writes code on napkins. She doesn't wear liquid gold to impress a man who looks like he counts his breaths to save energy." I felt a surge of adrenaline, a system alert that screamed for me to intervene. I reached out, my fingers wrapping around Winnie's wrist. It wasn't a soft touch. It was a claim. "Winifred is tired," I said, my voice a low growl. "The gala is over for us. We have a private schedule to maintain." Winnie looked at my hand on her wrist, then up at my face. I expected her to snap at me, to tell me to let go, to remind me of Rule 1. But she didn't. She saw the storm in my eyes, the chaotic, unprogrammed jealousy, and she actually leaned into me. "He's right, Mike," she said softly. "It's been a long night. I'll call you, okay? We have a lot to catch up on." Michael's smile didn't falter, but his eyes turned cold as he looked at my hand on her. "I'm sure you do. Be careful, Winnie. Some glitches are meant to be fixed. Others are just deleted." He gave a mocking tilt of his head toward me and disappeared into the crowd. I didn't wait. I pulled Winnie toward the exit, my strides long and furious. We ignored the reporters, ignored my grandfather's confused shouts, and ignored the cameras that captured the Ice King, dragging his bride-to-be out of the room like a captured prize. The ride back to the mansion was a heavy, suffocating silence. I stared out the window at the neon lights of Seoul, my jaw so tight it ached. Beside me, Winnie was unusually quiet. She'd kicked off her golden heels and was curled into the leather seat, her liquid gold dress bunched around her knees. "You're jealous," she said suddenly. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. "I am protective of my investment," I snapped, not looking at her. "He mentioned a contract. If he knows the truth, he is a liability to the merger. He's my friend Hwan. He's known me since I was a kid hacking into the school's grading system. He's not a liability, he's family." "A family who wants to cover the surgery?" I turned to her, my voice rising. "A family who looks at you like you're his personal property? He called you Winnie B. He touched you as if he had the right." Winnie let out a sharp, incredulous laugh. "And you don't? You were practically marking your territory back there. Roll 1 foot? You broke that rule 100 times tonight. You were holding me so close on that dance floor I could feel your heartbeat through your suit. Don't act like this is just about a merger, Hwan. Be a man for once and say it." "Say what?" I hissed, leaning over the center console until our faces were inches apart. The scent of her vanilla and the heat of her skin were making my vision swim. "That I hate the way he looks at you? That I hate that he knows the real you and I'm just the man with the checkbook? That I want to delete every memory you have of him and replace them with me?" Winnie's breath hitched. Her amber eyes searched mine, the anger melting into something far more dangerous. "Why, Hwan? Why does it matter to you? You're the algorithm king. I'm just a glitch. A temporary system error. Because the system is broken." I shouted, the words tearing out of my throat. "The code doesn't make sense anymore. I look at my schedule and all I see is the time I'm not with you. I look at my house and all I see is how empty it will be on day 100. I don't want to fix the glitch, Winnie. I want to live in it." The car screeched to a halt in front of the mansion. The driver scurried out, but I didn't wait for him to open the door. I grabbed Winnie's hand and pulled her out, dragging her into the foyer. I slammed the front door shut and pinned her against the dark mahogany wood. The only light came from the moon reflecting off the white marble floors. Winnie was breathing hard, her chest rising and falling against mine. The liquid gold of her dress shimmered in the shadows. "You promised," she whispered, her voice trembling. "No touching unless the cameras are on." "The cameras are off, Winnie," I breathed, my forehead dropping to hers. My hands were on either side of her head, my fingers tangling in the softness of her curls. And I've never wanted to break a rule more in my life. She reached up, her hands sliding over the velvet of my tuxedo, her palms resting over my heart. "It's beating too fast, Hwan. Your optimized heart is failing." "Then let it fail," I said. I leaned in, my lips centimeters from hers. I could feel her warmth, her desire, the sheer magnetic pull of a woman who had hacked into every defense I'd ever built. I wanted to stay in this moment forever, the tension, the restraint, the exquisite agony of almost. But then, the lights in the foyer flickered to life. My mother stood at the top of the grand staircase, her face a mask of cold, calculating fury. She wasn't holding a drink or a bag. She was holding a tablet. "Hwana," she said, her voice like a guillotine blade. "I think you should see what your fiancé has been doing while you were busy melting for her." She swiped the screen, and the massive projector in the foyer hummed to life. It wasn't a photo of Winnie dancing. It wasn't a photo of the gala. It was a bank transfer. A private, encrypted transfer of $500,000 from the Baytech Emergency Fund to a hospital in Atlanta. And the signature on the digital authorization wasn't mine. It was Winifred Adana's. She didn't just hack your heart, Hwan, my mother said, walking down the stairs with a slow, predatory grace. She robbed your company. She used your Ice King obsession to steal the money for her brother before the 99 days were even up. She was never going to stay, my son. She was just waiting for the transfer to clear. I froze. My hands dropped from Winnie's hair as if I'd been burned. I looked at the woman in the gold dress, who had just been in my arms. Winnie? I whispered. Winnie looked at the screen, her face turning a sickly shade of gray. Hwan. The hospital called. He was crashing. They needed the deposit immediately, or they were going to move him off the priority list. I was going to tell you. I was going to ask. But you didn't ask, my mother interrupted. You hacked the terminal in his office while he was in the shower this morning. You used his private key. I felt the ice returning, but this time, it wasn't a shield. It was a spear through my chest. I looked at the woman I had just admitted I couldn't live without. The data was clear. The evidence was undeniable. You stole from me, I said, my voice barely audible. I saved my brother. Winnie shouted, tears finally spilling over. I was going to pay it back with the contract money. I just couldn't wait, Hwan. He's a child. He was dying. You used me, I said, the words feeling like glass in my mouth. The gala, the dance, the glitch, was any of it real? Or were you just keeping the Ice King distracted while you emptied the vault? Winnie reached for me, her hand trembling. Hwan, please. Look at me. You know me. I don't know you at all, I said, stepping back into the shadows. I knew a girl who danced on windows. I don't know a thief. I turned to my mother, my face a mask of stone. Call the security team. Have her removed from the house. Her belongings will be sent to the airport. Hwan, no. Winnie cried, her voice echoing through the hollow mansion. Don't do this. Don't go back to the dark. I didn't look back. I walked into my office and shut the door. The silence returned, cold, perfect, and absolute. The algorithm king was back online. But as I sat at my desk, staring at the empty chair where she had sat and rewritten my world, I realized that the system hadn't just rebooted. It had crashed. And this time, there was no one left to fix the code. The silence in the penthouse wasn't the peaceful, organized quiet I had spent 30 years perfecting. It was the ringing, deafening silence of a vacuum. I sat at my desk, my fingers hovering over the keyboard, but for the first time in my career, the code looked gibberish. Every zero looked like the void she'd left behind, and every one looked like the straight, defiant line of her back as my security team led her out of the gates. The transfer was unauthorized, Hwan, my mother said, stepping into the office. She laid a hand on my shoulder, her rings cold through my velvet jacket. She played on your one weakness. You let a common thief into the Bay legacy. But it's handled. The press believes she's gone on a private retreat to prepare for the wedding. We will announce a quiet breakup in a month. The merger is safe. I didn't look up. Safe, I whispered. Efficiency, Hwana. That's what you always said. Emotional variables are just noise. I looked at the screen. My eyes landed on the terminal Winnie had been using. A small, blinking cursor was pulsing in the corner of a hidden window. I pushed my mother's hand away and leaned in. My heart, that broken, unoptimized organ, began to thrum. Winnie hadn't just made a transfer. She had left a log. I bypassed the security encryption she'd set up, a code she'd made purposefully easy for only me to break. It wasn't a bank statement. It was a video file, timestamped 3 minutes before she'd been dragged out. I clicked play. Winnie's face filled the screen. She was still in the liquid gold dress, but her mascara was smudged, and her hair was a beautiful, chaotic mess. She wasn't looking at the camera, she was looking at my empty chair. Hwan, she breathed, her voice cracking. If you're seeing this, it means your mom caught the glitch. I didn't steal that money to rob you. I redirected the emergency fund into a holding account because the hospital's system was being hacked by a ransomware virus. I saw it while I was checking on Peanut. If the deposit hadn't hit a secure, encrypted Baytech node, the hackers would have drained the hospital's entire surgical fund. I saved the hospital, Hwan. And I saved the money. Look at the return path code. It's all still there. Every cent. I felt the blood drain from my face. I traced the code. She was right. The money hadn't gone to her. It had been used as a digital shield to bait the hackers and trace their IP. She had saved the Baytech reputation from a massive cyber scandal while saving her brother's life. And Hwan. Winnie's image leaned closer to the lens, her amber eyes swimming with tears. The dance? The close breath moments? That wasn't the code. That was me. I didn't fall for the billionaire. I fell for the man who was too scared to let anyone see how much he actually cares. I'm going to the airport now. Michael's got a private jet waiting. I guess the 99 days just hit zero. The screen went black. I stood up so fast my chair overturned. My mother tried to stop me, her voice shrill with protest. Hwan, where are you going? The board meeting is in 10 minutes. The board meeting is a line of dead code. I shouted, not caring who heard me. I'm rebooting the system. I ran. I didn't wait for my driver. I jumped into my Ferrari and tore through the streets of Seoul, weaving through traffic like a madman. My Ice King persona was gone, shattered into a million pieces on the floor of my mansion. I didn't want a merger. I didn't want an inheritance. I wanted the girl who danced on windows. I arrived at Incheon Airport, my tires screaming as I skidded to a halt. I sprinted through the terminal, pushing past businessmen and tourists. I saw the departure board. Private hangar 4. Departure, 2 minutes. I burst through the security gate, my Baytech ID the only thing keeping the guards from tackling me. I reached the tarmac just as the engines of a sleek, white jet began to whine. Winifred! I screamed, my voice lost in the roar of the turbines. Winnie! The stairs were starting to retract. A figure appeared in the doorway. It was Michael. He looked down at me, his expression unreadable. He looked at the jet's interior, then back at me. He stepped aside. Winnie walked to the edge of the stairs. She was wearing her oversized neon hoodie again, her liquid gold dress probably stuffed into a trash can somewhere. She looked small, tired, and absolutely beautiful. Before we reach the ultimate moment, the one that changes everything, make sure you've subscribed to Stories Pulse. Like this video and comment reboot if you believe the Ice King can truly change. Now, back to the tarmac. The wind from the engines whipped my hair into my eyes, but I didn't blink. I stood there in my ruined tuxedo, looking like a man who had lost everything and finally found out why. Winnie! I yelled, cupping my hands around my mouth. The tie. You were right. It's ugly. All of them are ugly. Winnie stared at me, her mouth falling open. She stepped down one stair, then another. I don't care about the 99 days. I continued, my voice raw. The algorithm is a lie. You're not a glitch. You're the only thing in my life that's actually real. I checked the return path. I know what you did. I'm sorry. I'm a fool who forgot how to read the heart data of the heart. Winnie was at the bottom of the stairs now. She was crying, her shoulders shaking. Hwan, go home. Go back to your White House. Go be the king. I don't want to be the king. I stepped into the path of the jet's intake, forcing the ground crew to signal a halt. I reached her, grabbing her hands. They were cold, but as soon as I touched her, the heat returned to my world. I want to be the man who dances to Afrobeats in the kitchen. I want to be the man who eats spicy rice until he cries. I want to be the man who loves you, Winifred Adana. Winnie looked at me, searching my face for the Ice King, but all she found was Hwan. You're going to lose everything, Hwan. Your mother, your company, your reputation. Then I'll be a very efficient failure, I whispered, pulling her into my arms. I didn't wait for her to answer. I leaned in and kissed her. It wasn't a contract kiss. It wasn't for the cameras. It was a collision of ice and fire, a desperate, soulful reconnection that felt like a system restore. She tasted like tears and vanilla, and as she wrapped her arms around my neck, I felt the last of my coldness melt away. You really are a mess, Bae, she breathed against my lips, her amber eyes shining with a mischievous light. I'm your mess, I said. 1 year later. The boardroom of Baytech looked different now. The walls were no longer white, they were covered in vibrant, colorful art from across the African continent. The no-touching rule had been replaced by a must-have music rule. I stood at the window, watching the skyline. A door opened behind me. Mr. CEO? The CTO is here to see you, my assistant said, a small smile on her face. Winnie walked in, wearing a sharp, royal purple power suit and a pair of neon Jordans. Her hair was a crown of golden-tipped braids. She walked straight to my desk and dropped a file on it. The new encryption is finished, Hwan. It's unhackable. Even for me. Is that so? I pulled her into my lap, ignoring the fact that we were in the middle of a billion-dollar company. I adjusted her purple tie, the one I'd picked out for her. And what about the peanut update? Winnie's face lit up. He's out of rehab. He's already asking when he can come to Seoul and outcode his brother-in-law. He'll have to wait in line, I said, leaning in to kiss her forehead. I'm still trying to figure out how to outcode the woman who stole my heart. Winnie laughed, that deep, melodic sound that was now the only music I ever needed. You can't, Hwan. That's the beauty of a glitch. You don't fix it, you just learn to love the way it breaks the rules. I looked at her, my drama queen, my genius, my wife. The algorithm was finally perfect. The end.